getting rich wasn't as complicated as everyone makes it out to be? What if real, lasting financial freedom was actually within reach for regular, everyday people like you and me? Are you tired of working so hard, yet your dream life still feels so far away? Or have you watched others build the life that you want and wondered, what do they know that I don't? Well, I've got great news for you. You just found your answer. Welcome to Off the Record, How Ordinary People Build Extraordinary Wealth, brought to you by Finlightenment Financial Learning Group. I'm Tammy Kayata, and I'm about to be the financial advisor who finally tells you the truth, the real truth, including things that I legally couldn't tell my clients before. Stick with me because I'm going to get into all the details of exactly what I mean by that. At one point in my life, I was where you are right now. Frustrated, stuck, tired of feeling like financial freedom was meant for somebody else. But then everything changed because I finally learned how money really works. And now I'm here to share every bit of what I learned with you. I'm a certified financial planner with 2 master's degrees, one in investment management and a second in financial planning. And I spent 15 years as a financial consultant at a Fortune 100 financial services company, where I helped over 6,000 people transform their financial lives. I've seen what works, I know what the industry won't tell you, and you deserve to hear all of it. No fluff, no jargon, no watered down advice, just the real unfiltered strategies that everyday people are using right now to build genuine wealth and live life completely on their own terms. So if you're ready to stop waiting and start building the life you actually want, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. Now, there are a million How to Get Rich podcasts and YouTube channels already out there, and lots of them have great advice, but there's nothing out there that does what I want this show to do for you. And before I get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about me, who I am, where I came from, and why I care about this so much, because I think it matters that you understand the source. And I think a lot of what you're going to hear in my story is something that you might relate to. My father was born in Germany and moved to America when he was 8 years old. He was an only child, and he and his parents came over with nothing more than the clothes on their backs. They were lucky, though, because they had the support of friends and family that had already come over to the United States, and after living a little bit in New York City, they moved north to the Catskill Mountains. They got by, but just barely. After graduating high school, my father joined the Navy and built his career repairing radio communication equipment for planes and trains. My mother had a very different experience growing up. She was born into extreme poverty with 14 brothers and sisters. Although she was very intelligent, she didn't finish high school. She was cleaning at a small apartment complex near her house when she met my father. And what they had was a true romance. The depth of their love was something from the movies. They married, moved to the mountains, and had 4 children of their own. I was number 4, the baby. Life was magical for them as they built their dream home and raised a young family. My mother completed her GED and learned how to drive a car. They were building something real. But then life happened. My father's mother went to the hospital for a fairly routine procedure, but she didn't make it out. Several weeks later, his father died of a broken heart. And that was the only family truly close to them. Losing that support was devastating. And as if that weren't bad enough, just a few years later, when I was 5 years old, my father got sick. He battled leukemia for almost 3 years and lost that battle when he was only 42 years old. And there was my mother, a single mom to 4 kids with barely a high school diploma, practically no work experience, and no support system. When people ask me who my hero is, I always think of my mom. She wasn't perfect, nobody is, but she did the best with what she had. She battled depression, and it was very difficult for my sisters and me. But she didn't disappear. She didn't let the grief consume her. She knew what she had to do, and she did it. She started cleaning houses again, and then businesses at night. And during the day, she went to the local community college and took secretarial courses. Once she got a few of them under her belt, she started applying for jobs. A kind woman decided to take a chance on her and gave her a state job that paid a decent living wage. She stayed in that job until retirement. Things were tight. We didn't have much. Vacations just didn't exist for us. But for the most part, we were happy. We never worried about losing our house. We always had clean clothes and food on the table. In fact, I didn't even realize we were poor until I got to college and started to see what was normal for other people. As the baby of the family, with my mom working so much, my sisters did most of the parenting for me. And I was mostly blissfully ignorant of how difficult things really were. I always enjoyed school, I did well in school, and I kept to myself for the most part. I graduated as valedictorian of my grade from high school. I went on to college, did a dual major in economics and psychology, moved to Boston, and began my career, first in custodial banking, then at a pension consulting firm, and finally at a Fortune 100 financial services company. I loved all my jobs for different reasons, but by far my favorite role was financial consultant. By that point, I had taken all the training. I'd done every license exam that I needed. I earned a master's degree in investment management and then a second master's degree in financial planning and eventually the certified financial planner designation. And I walked into that role with a very clear belief. The reason people struggled with financial freedom was because they didn't have enough information. Give them the facts, show them what to do, and they'd do it. They'd build wealth, pay off debt, live a happy life, and eventually retire on the beach somewhere. Easy enough, right? Didn't take long to realize I was just plain wrong. Here's the thing. We do not live in a world that lacks access to financial education. It's all out there if you truly want it. So if the problem really was that people just don't know what to do, we'd actually be in pretty good shape right now. But we're not. Over half of America is living paycheck to paycheck right now, with little to no cash in the bank for emergencies. Many of those people are just one unexpected financial crisis away from total devastation. Beyond that, there are people feeling the squeeze of helping aging parents while raising young children, trying to keep up with normal living expenses in a world where prices are rising way faster than their salaries. They're saving for retirement, but they know it's not enough. And then there are the people who are actually doing really well financially, but they're so busy that they don't have the time to properly manage their financial plan, and the chances of missing something or making a mistake for them are really high. If just give people more information was the answer, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now. So it got me thinking, what truly is the problem if it's not a lack of financial education? And I realized it comes down to two things. First, the financial education that is out there has some serious problems. And second, we've been completely ignoring the fact that people are human, and humans are heavily driven by emotions and beliefs. And until we address those emotions and beliefs, the financial education just won't stick. Let's break those down. So, the financial education problem. Yes, there's a ton of it out there, and honestly, that's part of the problem. There's so much that it becomes completely overwhelming, and people get stuck in analysis paralysis. They spend so much time trying to figure out where to start that they never actually take action. And it gets worse. The social media and influencer world is easy to access and almost completely unregulated, which means that a lot of the tips, strategies, and advice you're getting is just flat out wrong. And in some cases, if you actually follow it, it's illegal. That's scary. And it's why so many people just don't know who or what to trust anymore, rightfully so. Some people think the solution is to ignore those influencers and go straight to their retirement provider, their bank, or a big investment company for guidance. That sounds smart, but it's still a problem. The finance industry is profit-driven. They don't do anything unless they make money from it. So a lot of what gets called financial education is actually fear-based marketing designed to convince you that this stuff is way too complicated for you to handle on your own, so you'll have to pay them advisory fees so they can manage it for you. Or it's a straight-up sales pitch for their investment or insurance products. And here's something that really used to bother me when I was a consultant. There were many times a client would come in and show me something that I knew was wrong. But because it was outside my legal scope, I couldn't say a word about it. It broke my heart every single time. So let me be really clear about what I mean when I said at the top of this episode that there are things I legally couldn't tell my clients before. That's what I'm talking about. To get a little bit more information, when you're a financial consultant inside a large organization, the compliance and the legal departments own you. The industry is incredibly regulated, and because the company's number one priority is not getting sued, the scope of what you can actually say and do is very, very narrow, which means a whole lot goes unsaid, even when speaking up would be 100% in the client's best interest. In practice, the consultant is typically limited to whatever investments live on their company's menu. Budgeting and credit management, not their department. The impact of money mindset, despite the growing mountain of evidence behind it, doesn't even come up. And insurance, legal, or tax issues, they run the other way fast. And yet all of those things matter. All of them are connected. You cannot build real lasting wealth while pretending half the picture doesn't exist. I knew that. I knew all of it. And for years, I had to sit across from clients I genuinely cared about and keep my mouth shut. It broke my heart. But I'm not in that seat anymore. And now I can say every single thing that I wasn't allowed to say before. So get ready, because if you know me, you know I'm going to do that. And that leads me right into the other big problem with financial education as it exists today. There's no single place that gives you a truly holistic view. One that covers all of it: mindset, money management issues like budgeting, goal setting, and credit, investing in both taxable and tax-advantaged accounts, insurance, legal, taxes, all together in one place. It just doesn't exist. So if you want to educate yourself, you have to look everywhere. And meanwhile, all of those pieces work together. It's a giant puzzle. And you really do need all of the pieces for any of it to actually work. So now you're probably thinking, wow, that sounds like a lot, and there's no way I can do this on my own. That's why I have to pay a financial advisor and don't need to bother learning all this stuff. Well, yes and no. I want to be really clear about something. I am very pro financial advisor. A good financial advisor is absolutely worth every penny you pay for them. I've seen firsthand what a truly skilled, ethical advisor can do for someone's financial life, and it's remarkable. So please don't walk away from this thinking I'm anti-advisor. I am not. But, and this is a big but, you cannot blindly trust them. And I say that with love because the stakes are just too high. Here's the reality. There are genuinely three kinds of advisors out there. The unskilled ones, who are often wonderful, likable people who are just really good at building relationships, but don't actually know their stuff. Or the unethical ones, people who have been burned really bad by these people. We're talking savings gone, retirement wiped out. But then there are the great ones, the skilled, ethical advisors who will absolutely change your life for the better. And here's the thing, there are a lot of great advisors out there, but you have to know how to find them. You have to know what questions to ask, what credentials actually matter, and what red flags to watch for. And you cannot just rely on a referral from a friend because your friend loves their advisor. But that doesn't tell you whether that advisor actually knows what they're doing. It tells you that they're likable. Those are two very different things sometimes. Part of what we're going to do together on the show is make sure that you know exactly how to find a great advisor and exactly how to evaluate whether the one that you're already working with is truly in that third category. And that brings me to something I feel really strongly about, because finding a great advisor is one thing, but you also need to show up to your meetings as an informed client. And that means building your own financial literacy across all of the areas of financial planning. Not so you can do their job for them, but for two really important reasons. The first one is protection. When you understand how money actually works across mindset, money management, investing, insurance, legal, taxes, all of it, you will know when your advisor knows what they're talking about. And just as importantly, you will pick up when they don't. You won't be fooled. You won't be taken advantage of. You won't sit across from someone nodding along while they say things that sound impressive but are actually wrong, or worse, not in your best interest. Knowledge is your armor, and I want you fully armored. The second reason is opportunity. And here's something most people never think about. When you can walk into a meeting with your advisor and already understand the basics, you completely change the dynamic of that relationship. They don't have to spend your time and your money walking you through concepts you could have learned on your own. Instead, you can skip straight to the good stuff, the strategy, the nuance, the decisions that actually move the needle. When you can speak the language, your advisor can take you to levels that just aren't accessible to someone who's starting from zero at every single meeting. You get so much more out of every conversation, and that translates directly into better outcomes for your financial life. And that's exactly what we're building here. The knowledge, the language, and the confidence to make the most of every resource available to you, including a great advisor. Now let's talk about the second part of the problem, the human part. The finance industry is only recently starting to wake up to the true impact that our brain and life experiences have on the financial decisions that we make. I realized this in my own life when I started reading about why some people build real success even with very difficult beginnings while others don't. Are there beliefs, traits, and habits that successful people share that we can actually learn from? And that was the beginning of my mindset work. And the answer, by the way, is yes. Now, I want to be totally transparent here. I am not a woo-woo type person. For many years of my consulting life, I completely dismissed mindset work and manifestation as total BS. But the more I learned, the more I understood that a lot of it is actually rooted in how our brains work, and it's backed by neuroscience. It became logical to me. And what I know now is that becoming aware of your limiting beliefs, challenging them, and replacing them with healthier habits truly changes lives, including mine. Let me give you an example from my own life, because I think a lot of you are going to recognize yourselves in this. When my husband and I were house shopping, I noticed that I kept dismissing certain towns because they felt too wealthy. Not because we couldn't afford them financially. On paper, we absolutely could. But because I had already decided somewhere deep down that we wouldn't fit in, that those weren't our people, that we didn't belong there. And when I sat with that, I traced it all the way back to childhood. In school, there were the kids who could afford fancy vacations, nicer cars, name brand clothes, kids with bigger homes in nicer neighborhoods. My child brain quietly filed them away as above me. We were never close friends, and without me ever consciously deciding it, I made a connection. Wealth isn't for people like me. I don't belong with wealthy people. And I had lived by that universal truth my whole life without ever questioning it until that moment. Looking back, I can see how many choices I made, big and small, that were driven by that one subconscious belief. Groups I avoided joining because the people looked wealthy. Levels of management I never even tried for because I'd already told myself that's not for me. Stores I didn't shop in, restaurants I didn't choose, cars I didn't even test drive, even though my husband and I could easily afford them. My logical mind wasn't running those decisions. My old story was. And here's what I know now, and this is a real game changer. You can tell someone the exact steps they need to follow to fix their financial life and build true wealth, and it will not matter at all if they're being controlled by old money stories and limiting beliefs. To truly build extraordinary wealth, you need both practical financial education and a healthy relationship with money. That's the whole premise of Finlightenment Financial Learning Group. When a strong money mindset is paired with practical financial skills, taking control of your money and building lasting financial success becomes inevitable. Not a wish, not a hope, inevitable. And I truly believe that. So here's what I want you to take away from this first episode. The reason you felt stuck, the reason the information hasn't translated into action in your life, it's not because you're not smart enough, not disciplined enough, or that financial freedom isn't meant for you. It's because you've been missing part of the equation. And now you've found the place that's going to give you both halves. That's what this show is. Expert, unbiased, comprehensive financial education from someone who has no product to sell you, no advisory fees to collect, and only one goal, helping you succeed. I'll see you next week.